right, guys, we're back again with another great episode of PFREI. I'm your host, Fuquan Bilal. Today we have Michelle Bosch from Orbit Investments. So Michelle is a full-time investor since 2002. She's bought and sold over 4,000 properties and built one of the largest land investment companies in the U.S. And she holds a portfolio of over 40 million in multifamily assets under management currently. So we wanted to get her on the show to kind of talk about land profit generator program that she has. She's also an author, successful entrepreneur and premier and leading expert, in land flipping. So we're going to talk about that. We only had one other land person, which is the land geek. I don't know if you know him on the show so far. And I learned so much from that interview. So I'm looking forward to this because real estate is really multifaceted. It's just, it's so many different ways you can make money. And I just kind of missed this whole thing with the land. So I'm going to be a student today. I got my pen and my pad. So looking to learn. So tell us a little bit more about your background. The number one question I always ask the guests at the top of the show is, why are you passionate for real estate investments?
I think the reason why I'm really passionate about real estate in general, it's an amazing vehicle. It has allowed me and my family to really live out the four freedoms that every entrepreneur, I think, and every investor starts investing for, which is to live the freedom of money, freedom of time, freedom of relationships, and freedom of purpose. And, at the cornerstone of that has been land for us. It's dear to my heart. We have been doing it now for 18 years, done over 4,000 flips. Created an eight-figure company out of that, $70,000 in passive cash flow just from land. And land was what allowed us to start basically moving some of those cash profits and cash flow into other asset classes such as single family and multifamily. We started with something very, very simple where, I say we because it's my husband and I, we work together. The result of our success, I think, is for sure this lifetime partnership and collaboration. And when we came here, we came to the U.S. as immigrants. He's from Germany, I'm from Honduras. And we came with nothing but 2 suitcases and hearts full of dreams. And we logically, got into real estate by getting into single family homes. And it was too complicated for us. We were trying to rehab a junker and flip it, and not knowing anything about real estate and being from a different country where construction is completely different and so on and so forth. We started looking for something different that was simpler. We came across a concept here in the US that is called tax liens, tax deeds. And I attended an auction, and because that blew my mind, the fact that you could lose your property over delinquent taxes here in the US. I go to the auction, I had a corporate job. I took off my Monday and Tuesday, go to the auction and find out that it's incredibly competitive, but that there's a bunch of properties that are going for auction that are actually vacant land, not houses, which is what we originally were looking for. And so we figured, okay, people have, given up on these properties because in order for it to go to auction, you have to be delinquent 5 years, at least in the state of California, where I had attended that first auction. I'm like, people have, sellers of these properties needed to have checked out many years before. What if we, send out letters to them and reach out to them way before, when they're freshly delinquent, and find out if they want to sell. So to cut the story short, over a period of almost 3 years, we perfected a model where we are able to purchase, properties for 5 to 25 cents on the dollar from not just motivated sellers, but non-wanters, and then turn around and sell those for cash at maybe 60, 70% of market value, or using seller financing at 100% of market value, where we are now becoming the bank and we have a monthly payment coming in every month. And, if you do one deal, that might not sound so sexy at $150, $200 of monthly payments. But when you do, 1,000, 2,000 deals, and all of a sudden you have 300 loans, and you have loans where, for example, you've purchased a property for, say, maybe $1,000, you sell it for $20,000, they give you $2,000 down, and now the remaining $18,000 are coming over a series of, 10 to 15 years. Then it starts really adding up, and it starts really making a difference. And that's, honestly, Fuquan, how we got out of the rat race. That's how we were able to leave corporate jobs where we had absolutely no freedom, none of the four that I talked about, in the beginning. We had no fulfillment, and definitely my paycheck did not meet the level of energy and effort that I was putting into, that job. So for us, we started, out of an incredibly deep dissatisfaction. I call it a universal, 4x4 of pain, because we weren't really pulled by a larger vision of pleasure back then. It was just trying to, go away from the pain of traveling 100%. We were both, my husband and I were both consultants in corporate America with, 2 weeks of vacation, and being from 2 different countries, that wasn't going to cut it. So that dissatisfaction is what led us to start looking for a side hustle, which, in a 3 years time became our main hustle. And now, 18 years later, we're now sharing this with others. And that's why I say, land has allowed me to really live out now my freedom of purpose of, really transforming the financial life of families, because that's what it did for us. When we started doing our very first flip, which wasn't a whole lot of profit, it was like about $3,600. That really sculpted my spirit, you know what I mean? And it can do that for many, many others. I want to see more women also in real estate. It's something so simple that you can do. But to be frank, we have from all walks of life, people that are doing this now, doctors, dentists that hated, being at a chair looking into people's mouths, nurses, single moms. I mean, you name it, the whole gamut. And it brings us so much joy now, for Jack and I to see that something that, was an outside the box thing, where we were contrarians, where whenever people would ask us, what are you doing in real estate? And we would say we're land flipping. People would be like, huh? What is that? And so we feel like we've pioneered an industry before, land flipping was a thing. We were already doing 8 figures, selling 200 properties, land properties in auctions, once a quarter. That is really, what allowed us eventually in 2009, because we kept on flipping even through the 2008 recession. Like hotcakes. And today, right now, it's happening again. We're flipping like hotcakes. We can't keep the properties long enough. So it's very recession proof. And what that allowed was for us back in 2009 is we were sitting on all this liquidity, allowed us to start looking into single family homes for buy and hold portfolio. Because there is one drawback, and the drawback is that as beautiful as land is, as simple as land is, no competition, you still don't have passive cash flow long term, because that note will eventually get paid off, and you're out of the monthly cash flow. So for us, we've used our land flipping kind of like our cash machine, and then that produces cash flow and cash profits, and we move it into single family back in 2009. And then 2015, we started looking at 100 plus units at a time. And so we're just moving it from asset class to asset class. And then we have what I call a perfect crime, in that now we have all this active income from the land flipping, and then I have the depreciation from multifamily and single family, and it goes against my active income, and it's just beautiful.
I love it. I love it. That was wow. Very,
yeah.
That was good. A couple of things that I picked up, with the tax liens, because I dabble a little bit in tax liens also. I started about 2 years ago going to the local municipalities in my area and focusing on vacant property, not land, tax liens on vacant property.
Yeah.
Where no one is living there, is abandoned, is beat up, and no one is going to come back and redeem a $50,000-$60,000 lien on that. So I've been very successful in that, getting properties for 35 cents on the dollar. But you're talking about raw vacant land with no house structure on it, just land, right?
Just basically, if there's no tenants, no toilets, no termites, and if there's termites, I flip those too.
So listen up with this. So I have a question. Are you only doing this in California or nationwide?
No, we do this actually nationwide. Now we work, to be frank, 17 states, and there's over 3,000, counties. I mean, we haven't even touched the surface of what's possible. Competition is minimal, because when everyone thinks about real estate, land is a gap in the real estate market that nobody thinks of. And so for anywhere between 750 to 1,000 letters that I send out, I have anywhere between 6 and 15% response rate. My spreads are anywhere between, I would say the average spread is $10,000 to $20,000, 10, 15, $20,000. So the same as a home, if not better, without any of the moving pieces of, holding costs, rehabbing, estimating repairs on foundations, on a floor, on kitchens, all of that kind of like disappears. And that's why for us, as immigrants back then, was so attractive and what made it simple to the point that, like I said, we perfected this model, simplified it, and then multiply it, and now can replicate it, for others as well. And it required a little bit of discipline because, like you said at the beginning, there's so many ways to make money in real estate, and it's that discipline of having a focus, on one singular activity and becoming a master of it. And for us, what we found is that we were able to quickly scale, our land business. And with that scale came repetition, and with repetition comes, doing something over and over and over again until you get mastery. And that gives you kind of like in my mind, I always think of mastery as like a PhD in making money. And once we had that PhD in making money in land, then we put a head to the horse to that thing, and then we started looking into single families and then multifamilies. But it comes from at the beginning, which is really hard for entrepreneurs because we're curious by nature. We want to explore all shiny pennies. But if anything, if I can save any one time is find an area in real estate that resonates, pick a lane, master that lane. I think that, that is the easiest, quickest way to really grow your cash flow with ease, eventually. Otherwise, you're always in that constant churn and burn. Yeah.
Yeah. So with all of the different states you're in, of course, when you're educating your people, you're telling them about redemption periods and everything. Is there on land? Is it the same as property? Because in our state, there's a 1-year redemption period after we buy the tax lien. Is it I know some states are tax deed, where you can actually foreclose and you own it right then and there. And they may have some redemption periods. So you guys, every state is different. I know the laws.
Yeah. For us, the redemption period is not really an issue because I'm not buying at the auction. I'm buying directly from the seller. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
you're just paying the taxes? Oh, so I get it now. You discovered that there's taxes on vacant land. You create a campaign to market to the people before they fall in delinquent and buy the land directly from them, bring the taxes current, and then you sell the financing and flip it to someone who may want to build on top of it and go from there, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. And we specialize in 3 types of properties. We specialize only on infill lots, path of growth lots, or recreational property that is within 2 hours driving of a major growing city.
Okay, infill lot. Let's break it down. Let's take it back a further.
So an infill lot is not a vacant piece of land in downtown Phoenix. When I say infill lot, I'm talking about a residential subdivision where there's houses everywhere and there's maybe 2-3 lots that are vacant, and where my exit is a builder, is a financial investor in mind. The same for path of growth. Like, for example, let me tell you, Phoenix and Tucson, there's a corridor in between both cities where eventually these 2 cities are going to merge. That corridor is a path of growth corridor. Just like between here and Tucson, there's also Phoenix and Las Vegas, And so we focus on, 45 minutes out from from downtown, for those path of growth areas, and then about 2 hours for recreational property, because at the end of the day, who wants to, travel 4 or 5 hours with their family on the weekend, to go spend time fishing, hunting, or whatever? So about 2 hours, and that's how we are able to move and, sell those properties quickly. We've become students of online marketing, so we sell all of these properties online on Facebook groups, Facebook Marketplace, LandWatch, LandFlip, Zillow, Craigslist, all kinds of basically free places. Eventually, you want to grow out of that and start, really building yourself a buyer's list. And, we've developed now over the years a proprietary CRM where it's basically workflow with our method from A to Z. where you can plug in through API to, to make sure that you have campaigns for your buyers and you're continually building that. It has a buying website, a selling website, and so on and so forth. But yeah, at the beginning, you don't have to even have a website. You can just for free basically list these properties and in many different free websites. And as long as you understand that what you're selling is not a piece of land but a dream, and that you have to be really appealing to that dream in your listing, because you can't sell a piece of land like a realtor would sell a piece of a house. They put on some lighting, stage it, and take photographs, because there's nothing to stage about the land. So you need to dream build with your potential buyer. If it's a builder, talk about how you are 40% below market value, in your listing. Talk about, the houses and the price square footage of the houses and the cost of building and so on and so forth. If you're talking to a recreational, person, you're going to talk about, the beautiful opportunities for fishing in the White Mountain Lakes area, the amenities, the hospitals, the restaurants, and then basically create a dream about, what this property could look like versus just having a photo, an image of a piece of dirt. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
That was you answered the next question. I was like, how do you market this? Like, you just take a picture of the land, so you packaging it for a builder or someone to be able to look at it and take it down. So let's kind of rewind a little bit back, since you started in 2002. So myself started in 99 and I got beat up in a recession. How did that play any part into your growth? Because I like to mention that as a learning experience to help you grow. So, you started in 2002, so you are market cycle tested. Let's talk a little bit about that. When that shifted, like you got in, a few years later, the market, people wasn't buying, banks wasn't financing, how creative.
Because we buy the property so cheap, and we don't even have to really use our own money to buy it, because we can do double escrow or assign the contract. You know what I mean? The financing or lending, and banks don't lend on land, has never been an issue because of the nature of how we've purchased it. If it's cheap enough and I know I'm going to make a profit, regardless of what's happening in the economy, I may buy it outright and use my own money, or I might put it under option, assign it, or double close it. So I don't use any of my money. But going back to what happened in 2008, is what we saw is what we're seeing right now, an increase in people trying to figure out, okay, where can I park my money that is going to preserve my, my capital and not erode it. So we saw quite a bit of people jumping in from, the stock market and start investing in real estate as well, not just in land, but across all asset classes, really, in real estate. We continue to see that as well. Builders that were on the sidelines waiting for a bargain and a good deal, all of a sudden are again in a recession buying, at low prices. And the people that, that are more interested in that recreational, or more kind of like a retail customer, they want to buy something inexpensive that they can go out there on the weekends, because they know that when a recession comes, they're not going to live la vida loca and travel to Europe and go to, Hawaii and whatever, but they're going to have to, be in town and, and perhaps escape the heat here during the summers, from Phoenix, and go 2 hours north to Flagstaff, where there's ponderosa pines and there's a 15-degree difference in temperature, and, and just beautiful all around, and cabins and so on and so forth. So that's pretty much, what we're seeing today. If anything, what we saw a little bit is that our spreads may have, compressed a bit, but because I'm also buying at cheaper prices, I'm able to, maybe my profits are slightly lower, but not that much lower, just because I'm buying so cheap. It's like, it insulates you from having to make big mistakes, costly mistakes. So for us, we just kept going in 2008. On the note side, we saw maybe a 5 to 8%, where people got a little bit late. And then just like people or like banks were giving loan mods, I offer loan mods too. You know what I mean? I offer them, to either decrease their principal or tag their payments at the end, or bring down the, lower the monthly payment. But really, I mean, at net, maybe a 3 to 4%, default rate on our notes, on our loans. So
yeah, that's awesome. That's amazing.
It's really good. It's not sexy, it's not glamorous, it's just a piece of land.
Yeah, I mean, I love the whole concept. I mean,
Yeah,
the part that really attracts me to this investment is the seller finance piece,
yeah,
right? Because I'm a
yeah.
note guy, and I'm already, my mind is like, okay, you get a piece of land, you create some seller finance. Like maybe if you guys are doing 5-year terms or whatever the term is. Now, once I got this thing performing, I can sell the performing note to someone else because it
Yeah,
has a history. I can
yeah,
hypothecate it. I can borrow against it.
yeah.
Because if this person has a 2-year note term or a 5-year term or whatever, I can go to investor and say, hey, listen, this person's been paying me on time for a year. Here's the payment history. I want to borrow against this note. My exit strategy is, they're going to build or refinance me out once they build or whatever the case may be. So that's great. You can hypothecate. You can do so many different things. You can, bring an investor in and share in the monthly payments. You can sell a
Absolutely.
partial. You could do so many things in that note
There's
space.
so many
Yeah,
things that you can
yeah,
do with it. And a lot of our students actually, if they need the liquidity, they'll go ahead and sell the note. We've never sold the note just because that's, I love the monthly payments. I
yeah,
don't, I'm
yeah.
working actually for those, you know what I mean? So,
Yeah, yeah,
it's like this progression of moving from what we call one-time cash, which is the flips, to temporary cash with the notes, because the notes get paid off, to what we call forever cash. Actually, in the Bosch household, we call, the ultimate passive cash flow, we call it forever cash.
generational
And
wealth.
yes,
Generational wealth. Yeah.
exactly. So yeah, so that's the point. It's just like, to this day, my mother continues to enjoy the fruits of a commercial piece of property that my dad had purchased, back in Honduras many, many years before he passed. I want also my own daughter now, who's 12, to, stand on my shoulders and continue expanding on that, and really thinking about wealth, not just, being income statement wealthy for the moment, but really balance sheet wealthy, not just for this generation, but for the others.
I like
I'm
that.
passionate about that. Actually, that's I think, something that, when it's something makes you choke, on your throat, or it gives you goosebumps, that's what, lights me up right now, in terms of, continuing to, to share our land profit generator method, is that legacy of prosperity foreign born, because my father passed away when I was very young. I was 9 months old. And he had invested in this piece of commercial, real estate 2 years prior to his death. And he was an accomplished attorney back home, but it wasn't his hotshot profession, as a lawyer, that kept my mother and I afloat financially. But it was that investment, it was that passive cash flow, that the residual income coming in, and really taking care of us financially, even though physically he was no longer there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's
And
awesome.
if I can help other families experience that, because I was a direct recipient of that, I would love to. My mom, as a single mother with a elementary salary back home in Honduras, in a third world country, she would have never been able to send me without that investment, to private school to learn English, to, come here to the US to study, and that's something that is super, super important to me.
Yeah,
It's
let's talk about that a
right
little
into my
bit.
heart.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit, because it's
Yeah.
always good to give back. And I like to interview people, who provide services to pull people up, like the coaching program you have, but people who are actually active in the business. Like, there's so
Yeah.
many people who coach who's
Yeah.
not active in the business, and the methods are years old, or they're pulling stuff offline and
Yeah.
repurposing it, and
They're not eating their own cooking.
yeah. I like that one.
Yes.
I like that one. So yeah, let's talk about that a little bit, because I know you do some coaching on this. You're creating competition, essentially, is what you're doing. But anyway,
Yes, but like I said,
you're giving back. You're helping people pull up. It's so much
there's so many
abundance of opportunity. Yeah, right.
there's so many counties in the US that, I mean, for every 10,000, house flippers in one market, like Phoenix, or maybe Miami or Houston or Dallas, maybe there's, I don't know, 10 land flippers, if anything, that I'm going to be creating competition for. I mean, the opportunities are just so boundless, and I think it comes with that abundance mentality of,
Yes.
the when we lift the tide for one boat, all boats rise, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And so yeah, I don't worry about that. I think that, you know, it's a matter of whether you see business as a transaction or as a transformation. And for me, I'm kind of like this hard cash mystic, you know, in that even, you know, making money and helping others make money is a matter of the heart for me. And so we don't mind sharing it. We don't, you know, mind creating the competition, even here in Arizona, you know, because we live here in Arizona and this is where we started and this is our backyard. A lot of our students, you know, also, you know, work the same counties that we do, and we seldom come across each other, you know. It's like, and when we do, I'm like, oh, that's my letter. It's a student of ours. They're doing a good job. You know what I mean? So yeah, I think it's having that shift from, you know, scarcity to abundance, and from seeing it as a transaction versus a transformation. Now I have families, for example, that, you know, have been very successful in the land flipping, have created quite a bit of cash profits, and now eventually, you know, have invested with us in our apartment syndications, you know, some of those profits, and they continue to invest and grow financially their wealth with us. Eventually, maybe their kids will be doing business with my daughter, you know what I mean? So I don't see it as a transaction so short term, but really, much more of a longer game, you know. From, like I said, even once I'm gone, you know, I want to know that there's going to be kids that I won't get to meet that are going to say, wow, you know, my grandma or my mom, you know, used to work 3 jobs, you know, as a waiter, and all of a sudden, you know, that stopped because she started investing in land, and you know, before she passed away, and you know, that business got, you know, transferred over to my mom or whatever, you know, kind of like how I talked about my father's experience and his decision. I think there's going to be an incredible ripple effect, and it gives me goosebumps of kids out there that are going to say, you know, my mom and dad invested in this, and because of this, this is what my children now have, you know what I mean? And that lights me up.
Yeah,
So
that's awesome. Yeah, you guys are doing a great job out there. I definitely appreciate you coming on the show. This was a really great interview. I learned a lot. I took a lot of notes also. I got a lot of the sayings you had,
yes.
everything. It's a lot.
And if you
Oh,
want to
man.
learn more, we are inside of our Facebook group day in and day out. Jack and I, we have a, you know, community of about 10,000 land flippers, and it's called Land Profit Generator inside of Facebook. It's free. You don't have to pay me a single dime to be there. And if you want to start flipping, we're here to help you. Of
That's
course, we offer coaching. So if you guys, you know, wanted to put, you know, your land flipping business on steroids and really scale that quickly and replace, you know, create a big 6 or 7 figure boom rather quickly, you know, we specialize in that because we've done it for ourselves. Like, we eat our own cooking, like you said.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's another great episode of PFREI. Michelle Bosch from Orbit Investments. You guys be sure to check out that Facebook page. This was great, Michelle. I really appreciate this.
Thank you so much,
Awesome
Bukwan.
interview.
It's such an honor to be here with you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. I appreciate it.